Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Through storytelling and conversational interviews, this weekly radio show and podcast offers listeners an insider's view into starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people. Connect with Kerry through her candid, often funny, and always informative weekly blog. There you'll read, learn, and may comment about her life as a 21st century wife, mother, daughter, and entrepreneur. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Thank you, Sun Gray. If right now you're sitting at your computer, you might want to watch the show on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. It's live, and I thought we were going to be live on YouTube.
It's actually live this week on Up in Your Business's Facebook page.
Oh, is that what I'm supposed to say?
That's right.
Well, okay. For my editor, I will say you might want to watch the show on Up in Your Business. What is it? Just Up in Your Business?
Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on Facebook. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sun Gray. Last week during the Frank Fletcher interview, Facebook was having technical problems. It was not us. It was Facebook. We, however, continued to record Mr. Fletcher's show, which is now available for viewing on Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy's YouTube channel. Gray's nodding. Or you can go to ArkansasFlagandBanner.com, flagandbanner.com's homepage, and click on radio show, and there's a link there also, right?
That's perfect.
So 2 places. All right. This show began as a calling. After 4 decades of running a small business, I felt I had something to share. I wanted to create a platform for not just me, but other business owners and successful people to pay forward their experiential knowledge in a conversational way. Originally, my team and I thought it would be this easy, informative 1 hour a week interview, and boy, were we wrong. As with every new endeavor, it's harder than first thought. Once again, I find myself on the onset of starting and running yet another new business, this podcast, and doing exactly what this show is about, creating a new business, taking risks, and working hard. After interviewing over 100 successful people, 153, I've noticed some reoccurring traits among many of my guests: belief in a higher power, the heart of a teacher, and creativity, because business is creative. Before we start, I want to let you know if you miss any part of today's show or want to hear it again, share it. There's a way, and Gray will tell you how.
Listen to all UIYB past and present interviews by going to flagandbanner.com and clicking on Radio Show, or subscribe to our YouTube channel or podcast wherever you like to listen by searching Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. Also, you may simply like Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy's Facebook page to watch our live stream and receive timely notifications of upcoming guests.
Thank you, Gray. Most of us are either predominantly right brain or left brain users. But my guest today, radiologist and nutritionist Dr. Jason Beck, is a user of both. Dr. Beck, do you call yourself a nutritionist?
Probably the better description is a lifestyle medicine doctor for that side of what I do.
Okay. Along with being a book-smart academic, Dr. Beck is a creative entrepreneur, having founded in 2006 Arkansas Specialty Radiology, and in 2010 Onsite Imaging Solutions. But it doesn't stop there. Being a third-generation entrepreneur, Beck couldn't resist helping and learning about other business opportunities. And so in 2015, along with his sister Monica, founded Tricore Capital LLC. If I had the money, I would do that, because you get to learn about these businesses. And that's the creative part that we were talking about. Business is so creative. But that's not even what I find most interesting about him. Today, we are going to spend a lot of time talking to the good doctor about his passion project for spreading the healing powers and nutritional benefits of a plant-based diet. Dr. Vegan, as his friends call him, believes so strongly that most chronic illnesses, diabetes, and cancer can be prevented and often cured with healthy life choices that he is now board certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table the creative entrepreneur, hardworking radiologist, and vegan and lifestyle expert, Dr. Jason Beck.
Appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. You're a third-generation entrepreneur.
I am. I come by this very naturally. So my grandfather was an inventor and actually brought the technology to the United States from Japan that debones chicken back before there were chicken nuggets. And my father was a computer software company owner, developer of software, and I've followed in those footsteps, as has my sister. So it's been an interesting journey.
So radiology software, you think it is? That's why you started these companies that are called, what do I call it? Arkansas Specialty Radiology. It's a lot of computer technology.
Right. So Arkansas Specialty Radiology is my radiology practice group that I started to basically allow me to have time to explore all of my interests while practicing medicine. The two groups here in town that were available at the time did not offer part-time spots, and I wanted to be able to practice medicine part-time and explore my other interests part-time. So I founded my own group, and there's now 6 of us that are all part-time doctors and part-time entrepreneurs. So I've got a partner that owns a company that does internet service out in Idaho called Moose Bites. And I've subsequently founded a couple other companies myself. So it's given us all the opportunity to do what we love in medicine as well as do the other things we love in life.
That creative part of being an entrepreneur. So did you grow up in Arkansas?
I did, born and raised here.
Where? In Little Rock?
Little Rock.
And your daddy was a software engineer? Must have been very far back.
Well, he was back when PCs first came about. And
when they were mainframe?
Yes, actually, when he started his company, everything was on a mainframe. And he had not trained in software, but had an idea for software that he wanted to make. And so hired software architects to engineer that for him.
How do you even know about that?
He was in the insurance industry and just came up with an idea on how to provide a better service in that industry. And actually, his office was right here in this building.
In the Plaza West building that we're in right now?
Yes, a couple floors down. So when I was a kid, I would come up to this building and go to my dad's office, which was half of this floor. And that's where he did it out of.
And a mainframe is pretty big.
It is. It takes up an entire room.
And he had engineers working on it. And I guess he was doing data scrubbing to figure out the life expectancies of his clients so he would know how to insure them?
His was more, they were collecting data from companies to provide personalized employee benefit reports, which was all done manually at the time. And he wrote software to basically automate that process.
Personalized what?
Employee benefit reports. So, if an employee has life insurance and health insurance and retirement contributions and things like that, basically an annual summary that allows them to kind of see all of that to understand everything that they get in addition to their income.
Oh, so it's like your employee package. So
Correct.
It's like, come to work for me and don't just get this salary. You get all these things that add up to a certain amount.
Correct.
Doesn't seem like you need a computer to do that. Just give me a calculator and a pencil. Of course, they didn't have calculators when he was doing this.
They were very archaic.
They were 10 keys.
They had little red numbers on them.
They had 10 keys.
Yes.
Because I went to college and learned how to use a 10 key. And I am not that old. All right, I love this story. So you decide you're going to be a radiologist.
Yes.
Did you always know you wanted to be a doctor, or how did that come to be?
I did from a very young age. I just always had a lot of respect for them and what they did, and just always something I wanted to do. I love the science behind it. Love taking care of people, so I was always drawn to it. He hesitated on that,
didn't he? He did hesitate on that word people, didn't he? He was like, I love taking care of people.
Oh, I have a little bit of a stutter that pops out every once in a while, so that's what that was actually, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You can't tell.
Right.
And your uncle, this is like a free thing we get to learn today. Your uncle made the device that debones chickens.
My grandfather, actually.
Your grandfather.
Yes.
So that we now have chicken McNuggets.
Right. Yep. He was the one that brought that technology over from overseas to the United States.
Did he learn it in the war?
No, he just saw an opportunity and heard about it and realized that it didn't exist here yet, and went over and found it and brought it here.
Jason, I want to tell everybody that this is Dr. Beck's first time on the radio, and I didn't know you had a stutter, and you are very brave to come on the radio if you have a stutter.
It's like the King's Speech. The only way to get past it is to get past it, right?
Oh, I bet you love that show, don't you? I love that show. That was a great movie. I watched it a couple of times. All right, so then you decide you're going to go to college. Where'd you go to college?
Hendricks College, Conway, Arkansas.
All right. And you're going to be a doctor, and you're studying to be a doctor, and then all of a sudden you go, I think I'll do radiology and get exposed to radiation every day. No, really, how did that happen?
Well, it was a combination of things. I love the technology behind it. I've been in computers ever since I was a little kid, inspired by my dad.
Sure.
And so in college, worked at the med center as a network person. And so that's always just been a strong appeal of mine. And so radiology is all very computer-based. CT scans are computers, MRIs are computers. And so that's what really drew me into it. And then it was kind of a constantly evolving, technologically advanced field. And so I figured it would kind of keep me interested through my career with everything new coming out. So
people that are smart and that are inquisitive and creative like that have a hard time staying stimulated in their jobs. You were smart to recognize that early on.
Interesting through the years. Back when PCs...
You're going to start Arkansas Specialty Radiology in 2006 because you want to be able to work part-time, and there were no job opportunities to be able to work part-time.
Correct. I basically wanted to create a new model of radiology practice where radiologists could work kind of how they wanted and when they wanted and as much as they wanted. And so I've kept that balance through the years and have a very happy career right now.
You know, life-work balance is extremely important today. When I started Arkansas Flag and Banner 40 years ago, people wanted a base salary, and they wanted to know every month exactly how much money they were going to make. Then it went to, they wanted to have some flexibility, and so they went to hourly. And then now when people come in and apply for jobs with me, one of the things they ask about is life-work balance. That was never a conversation 30 years ago.
Right, and I think that's a new thing that we know now, that that life-work balance is what keeps people happy and healthy throughout their life. And so unfortunately, through the process of medical training, we go through many, many years where we're working way more than we need to work. They actually had to make a rule, I don't know, it's about the time I finished training, where they could not work more than 80 hours a week because everybody was working more than 80 hours a week, and they didn't feel like that was healthy. And so now the residents only work 80 hours a week.
I still don't think that's healthy. I don't feel like the care you get is that good. Now, I know they can sleep there at the hospital. Is that considered part of their 80 hours?
It is not.
You are awake for 80 hours a week. And I had a brother-in-law who was a doctor, and he did not look well.
It's definitely taxing.
And I promise you he was not given as good a care as he should have been. Why did they do that?
I think part of it is trying to fit all of the training into those number of years. It just requires kind of double duty to get everything in that you need to know to take care of patients well when you get done.
I don't know how you can remember anything. I mean, your brain just... Anyway, then the next business you started in 2010 was Onsite Imaging Solution. Again, I think you saw a niche.
Correct. And this one was inspired by my mother, actually. She's a PhD nursing researcher and spent her career learning how to take care of elderly patients better. And my sister and I, through some exposure to the nursing home environment, recognized that there was a big need nationwide for a different and better level of care in those nursing homes, particularly when it came to imaging. So what was happening was patients were, say somebody fell and they thought they broke their hip, they would put them in an ambulance, take them to the hospital, x-ray them, realize it wasn't broken, they'd take them back. And now these patients, they have things called like sundowning, where they get out of their normal environment and they struggle. And so what we did was, around the country, those x-rays normally took 2 or 3 or 4 days to get done and get the reports back. And so what I did was figured out a way to basically make that happen in 15 minutes. And so I basically aggregated a bunch of technologies that already existed using cellular broadband, voice recognition software, cloud-based computing, and put them together to make a system where we were able to get images done and reports back quicker than anybody else could do it. And so we started that company, and within 2 years had most of the market in the state. And I say I started that with my sister as well. So yes.
So you go to the nursing homes and you can you can perform the necessary tests there.
Correct, right there on site. And then the image data is actually uploaded through a cellular broadband connection to a cloud computer system that I read from and then use voice recognition to dictate the reports that are immediately sent back. We developed iPhone apps so that the ordering doctors could see everything right there on their phone and right when they came back and everything. So
Thank you, Dad. Does Dad help you with that?
my dad,
Yeah.
he helped early on, mainly more in the mechanical side of things because we had to kind of invent how to put these machines in the back of vans. The digital machines had not been done before, and so he helped kind of engineer some of
I
that.
bet your family dinners are so interesting.
They are.
I think I bet anybody that marries into your family just feels so intimidated. They're like, I'm not going to talk because I'm going to sound stupid. Then you're doing so, and I just want to say that I actually had problems with my mother when she was alive, and that is a big deal, moving elderly people around to get to them to services.
It is.
It's a big problem. And sundowners is a big deal.
It is.
20, which for everybody listening, it just means they get, I think they call it sundowners because it usually happens at sundown. Is that
It does.
correct?
Yep.
And then but you can also get it when you move them around into a new location. They get confused and
It exaggerates any current problems that they're having. So
well said.
Yeah.
In 2015, you decided, I'm so good at making businesses, I'm going to start a Tricore with your sister again. You said, I'm going to start Tricore Capital LLC with my sister. That's just been 4 years ago.
correct.
You love it?
I do.
How many businesses have you helped?
Quite a few. We predominantly operate in the space of private lending, so we help people that want to do real estate to have the capital that they need to make those deals happen. And then we've also done some angel investing with some Arkansas companies and also companies outside of the state. So
I think angel investing would be so much fun.
yeah, it's fun to see small businesses grow and to help them grow.
And then have you started some of your own businesses?
The private lending business was one that kind of was born out of Tricore Capital that we started, and have actually written software to make that all automated.
Okay. This is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Jason Beck, radiologist, entrepreneur, and certified expert on lifestyle medicine. And we're going to talk about what I really wanted to bring Dr. Beck on the whole next part of the hour. We're going to talk seriously about the ways you can prevent and even overcome chronic illness, diabetes, cancer, and possibly live to be 100 years old. We'll be back after the break.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed, starting with door-to-door sales, then telemarketing, to mail order and catalog sales. And now, flagandbanner.com relies heavily on the internet and live chats with customers all over the world. Over this time, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge has grown. As early as 2004, she began sharing her knowledge in her weekly blog. In 2009, she founded the nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom, and in 2014, Brave Magazine, a biannual publication. Today, she has branched out into podcasts, Facebook livestream, and YouTube videos of this radio show. Each week, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guests about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting and inspiring. Stay up to date by joining flagandbanner.com's mailing list. You'll receive our Water Cooler Weekly e-blast that notifies you of our upcoming guests, happenings at Dreamland Ballroom, sales at flagandbanner.com, access to Brave magazine articles, and Kerry's current blog post. All that in one weekly email. Or you may simply like upinyourbusiness.com's Facebook page for timely notifications. Telling American-made stories, selling American-made flags. TheFlagandBanner.com. Back to you, Kerry.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Dr. Jason Beck, radiologist, inventor, even though he would say he's not an inventor, but I think you're an inventor, entrepreneur, vegan, and lifestyle medicine expert. He is a smart guy, and everything we're about to talk about now is not going to be pie in the sky. I promise you. He has done research. He often, even with his stuttering, he gives speeches on this. This may be his
Technologically advanced field.
He is passionate about the subject of your health. How did you become, Jason? How did you become so interested in diet and wellness?
So my journey was a personal one that happened very organically. At age 35, I was 70 pounds overweight and and went to the doctor for a life insurance physical, and my blood pressure was a little bit high and my cholesterol was a little bit high. And so he said, well, I'll just put you on a little low dose blood pressure medicine, put you on a little cholesterol medicine. And, I came home that day and I thought to myself, I'm a pretty active guy. I go and, ride my mountain bike with friends, and I go on hikes, and I try to watch what I eat, and yet I'm not right. And so I was fortunate at the time to be married to somebody who had explored a plant-based diet and gave me the window to start to look into that. And so her offer to me was, why don't you just try it for 3 months and see what it was like? And so I did. And 3 months later, I had shed quite a few pounds. My blood pressure was back down to normal. My cholesterol was back down to normal. And at that point, I thought, there really must be something to this. And so I began about a 2-year process of self-education, and I devoured every journal article, every podcast, every expert in the field, just to learn everything that I could about it. And at that point, I got very into it, where I had transitioned my diet to a completely whole food plant-based diet, and had gotten my family on board with this, my sister, my brother-in-law, who's an interventional cardiologist, my father, and my mom, and just saw dramatic changes in all of them. I mean, my parents, over the course of a few years, got off all of their medications and now have normal numbers.
How old are they?
In their mid-70s.
Because of a plant-based diet, whole food
Yes.
plant-based diet. They take no medicine.
That is correct.
You know how many people die? You probably do know. I don't know, but a lot of people die from drugs,
Absolutely.
from over-medication, or side effects. Really, not over-medication, but from
Absolutely.
side effects.
One of our top killers, actually.
Is side effects from medicine.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So over the course of the last decade, I've maintained my ideal body weight, and my numbers are all normal. I checked my blood pressure a couple days ago when I went to work out. It was 100/65. So being 10 years older and having the blood pressure of a child just reinforces to me like I'm doing the right thing. There's a new medical specialty that has emerged called lifestyle medicine. And I was made aware of that a couple years ago and was so excited about that, I went and got board certified in it. And it is a medical specialty that focuses on lifestyle changes to prevent and cure chronic medical problems. And so they focus on the things that we kind of all know to be true, right? Which are, if you eat healthy and you move some and you sleep well and you don't smoke and you don't drink too much, you will live a better, healthier, happier life, right? And so what their shift is, instead of a patient coming to the doctor and taking vital signs of blood pressure and labs and everything, prescribing them medications to fix their problems, their vital signs become questions about their lifestyle, right? What do you eat every day? What's your stress level like in your life? How do you sleep? How's your social support network? Do you take time every day to relax? Things like that. And so it really gets engaged with what we know from these blue zones around the country, which are these areas in the world where people live long, happy lives. We can learn lessons from there and then apply that to our medical practice where we take care of patients. And that's what got me really excited, because I think as we are in a healthcare crisis in this country where we're spending $3 to $4 trillion a year taking care of everybody, we know that can't persist, right? And so the average healthcare expenditure is growing, I believe, at a 12% rate per year, which means it's going to double very quickly. And so we're on a trajectory right now where the last numbers I looked at, 7 years from now, the annual household income will equal the annual household healthcare spend unless something changes. So you've seen people like Berkshire Hathaway and Amazon and JP Morgan Chase get into the healthcare arena. And I think that's wise, that they see that we're on a crash course for something that will destroy our country from an economic level, and it's got to be fixed. And so I believe lifestyle medicine is the way to do that, because most chronic problems, most cancers, most of the things that we treat can be prevented with lifestyle changes.
Diabetes.
Diabetes, absolutely. Diabetes is a curable disease in
For the
most
most
people.
part.
Yes.
For probably 99% of the people
Correct.
out there. People make a choice every day what they put in their body, what they eat.
They do 3 times a day.
Probably one of the biggest decisions you make a day.
Absolutely. Well, and it's also the largest interaction we have with our environment. I mean, if you think about it, the air that touches us, the water we drink, and the food we put in our bodies are really all that happens to us every day, right? And so that food that we put in our body is a predominant director of our health outcomes in no uncertain terms. The genes may load the gun, but the diet pulls the trigger, right?
I watched a TED Talk getting ready for the show, and it said that there was a twin study. What were the name of those twins? The Danish twin study. And only 10% of our health comes from our genes. 90% of our health comes from what we eat in our life. So you talked about the blue zone a little bit, and I never heard of the blue zone till I started this interview today. And the blue zone, tell everybody what the blue zone is and
so
about the man who started it.
Sure. The blue zones concept was by Dan Buettner. He basically traveled around the world and identified the places where people led the longest, healthiest, happiest lives, and looked at the common characteristics of what those people that lived in those places did, right? And the idea is you want to like live until you die, right? And so in the United States here, people kind of live until their 60s, and then they're going to the doctor every week, and they got a bag of medications they carry around with them, and they don't feel good, and they just taper from there, right? Whereas in these other areas of the world, people are living vibrantly into their 80s, 90s, 100, right?
And then most of them die in their sleep.
Yes.
Which is the way everybody wants to go.
Right. You want to like live long and die short, right?
Yes.
And so basically what he did, which makes complete sense, is let's just look at some of the characteristics of how these people live, and let's see if we can see what the common threads are and apply those to our life, right? And so some of the common threads that he saw were a predominantly plant-based diet.
Meat only like once a week.
Meat is a celebration, very small portions.
3 or 4 ounces once a week.
Correct. Yes. A lot of natural movement, a lot of good social support, living in close contact with loved ones.
Sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose is very important.
And they don't even have a word for retirement.
They do not, most of them. And the ability to downshift every day at the end of the day is one of the key things. And that's where...
reduce your stress through a daily ritual.
Right. And whether you do it, by stopping and having a glass of red wine, or whether you do it by going and doing something that you enjoy doing with friends, it's that key, I believe, is to downshift in of every day and remove kind of the stress from the day and move on into your pleasant evening. And those are just some of the characteristics that carried through all of those cultures.
Prayer, meditation,
Correct.
Walk in the woods.
Correct. All the things that we as Americans don't do near enough of in general.
We feel guilty, or at least I do. I'm like, oh, downtime. I can't have any downtime. I liked the 80% rule.
Yes, eat till you're 80% full. Very good rule.
A great rule.
Right. And I think, sitting down to a meal, we pray oftentimes, but I think you can also, in addition to praying, give some consciousness to the food that you're eating, where it came from, how it was prepared. And I think when you stop and do that, you're much less inclined to kind of overeat, right? You eat in a much more conscious way. And so it's easier to, appreciate the food that you're getting, eat till you're comfortably full, and stop.
And the 80% rule is because it takes 20% for you to feel the food it takes 20 minutes for you to feel the food you ate.
Correct.
To get full. So if you eat till you're 80% full, you are actually 100% full within 20 minutes, because it gives it time to go register to your brain that you're full. And they have smaller plates in most of these countries.
They do.
I think that's a really simple solution or exercise that all of us can do, is eat on a smaller plate.
It makes your food look like it's bigger.
I've never thought about giving thought and gratitude to my food, but I'm going to start doing that. I believe giving gratitude is one of the examples they use for reducing stress, is a daily ritual of gratitude. Kind of listing, thank you for being born in America.
Absolutely.
I mean, does anyone ever give a gratitude for that one? And that's a big one. Especially when I watch the news, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm not having to cross the border right now. The diet, eat lots of beans.
Yes, beans are actually a common thread among the blue zones. And we know...
I don't like beans that much. I mean,
So-
they're okay. But aren't there a lot of varieties?
Oh, there's hundreds of varieties of beans.
So maybe I just haven't tried them all. Because I only think of the 5 beans that are in the grocery store in the cans.
Right. So even at Walmart, they've got probably 20 or 30 kinds dry.
Really?
Some beans you might have never heard of right there on the Supercenter aisles.
Walmart knows. Clubs and it said another one was belonging to a faith-based organization, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it can be AA. It can be a club or an organization or even a book club, but having that connection of being in a club and having
Right.
friendships.
Right.
And then another was family, caring for another person.
Very important. It goes back to that sense of purpose. And I think, in the United States now, people tend to be very separated from their families oftentimes. There's other countries in the world that actually give you tax breaks if you live close to your parents, right? And,
You'll get a tax break, Gray. He lives in the backyard.
Gee, thanks, Mom.
Well, and I actually live next door to my parents and my sister as well. And so we have our own little village, if you will, which is wonderful
Commune.
for raising children and
Oh, it's great.
social support and support when you're having troubled times and everything else. It's just a wonderful way to live. Some people see it in this American culture as kind of odd.
I think so too. Our family has actually talked about that. Why would you not want to stay with your tribe and support yourself as a tribe?
Agreed completely.
And it only changed like in the 50s. Somewhere around the 60s or 50s, everything began to be like kick your kids out of the house and put your parents in an old folks' home. And
Right, and most other cultures in the world still live that way. And even people who have immigrated here to the United States from these other cultures oftentimes still live that way. I think we need to look to them to set an example of what we should go back to
I agree.
rather than progressing forward of more isolation, more separation. Those are things that don't promote health and healing and happy life.
There's something called the grandmother effect on children.
Which makes complete sense to me. I mean, I don't think there's anybody better equipped to contribute to a child's life than their grandparents, right? They've got all the time in the world. They've got the resources. They've got the life wisdom. So, I mean, it's almost bringing a tear to my eye because, like, my little
You're
girl
about
goes,
to cry on
yeah, my
that.
little girl goes down in my mom's garden, right, every day with her, and it's just a wonderful experience for all of them. And so, yep, absolutely, it's very important.
It really is. And my grandkids, I tell people all the time when they have children, I said, well, you're really just having the children so that you can one day have grandchildren.
That's right.
Because that's really all you want. And then I loved this one. Have a glass of wine. If you can. And if you can't, I think you can have apple cider vinegar probably.
I think it's not so much the glass of wine, but I think it's the shift that comes with the glass of wine.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
The science now is pretty clear that there's a linear relationship between alcohol consumption and the detriments of alcohol. And 0 is best, 1 is next, 2 is next, and when you get past that, you might get in trouble. I think it's more so the when people tend to stop and have their glass of wine, what do? They sit down, they watch the sunset, they gather their friends around, they talk, they visit about their day, they decompress, all those things. And wine is kind of the conduit that brings people together to do that. And so I think that's why that runs through those cultures as a common thread. I don't think it's necessary to do that. I mean, I personally like a glass of wine every once in a while,
Yeah.
but
But sometimes people take it too far.
that's right.
I mean, they absolutely do. Some people are like, oh, a glass of wine every day. Well, let me see how big a glass I can get. This is a great place to take a break. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, and we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Jason Beck, radiologist, entrepreneur, and certified expert on lifestyle medicine. I love talking about this subject. I love helping people. He loves helping people. We're going to expand on this healthy life choices and the implementation of them into your life. Even if you just do one of them, it's an improvement. And if you have a question for Dr. Beck, stay tuned. Son Gray is going to give you the hotline number right after the break. I want to remind everyone we're broadcasting live every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time on 101.1 The Answer and flagandbanner.com's Facebook page and Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy's Facebook page. And that after each show's airing. A podcast is made available on all popular listening sites and YouTube. Phone number when we come back. I love being a grandmother so much. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I love being a grandmother. And I'm so much nicer to my grandkids.
Yes, she is.
I know, right? Well, then, as parents have to be the disciplinarian. They got to do
And
all
they're
that stuff.
driving you nuts.
Yeah,
They're getting on your middle nerve. I'm going to cry with you. I made a garden. I thought, oh, Evelyn's just going to love this garden. We grew these little seeds in the house, Megan's daughter. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. We get out there and plant, and she's like, oh, dirt? No dirt, no dirt. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, he cannot train me in the booth. He keeps trying to train me. I cannot get trained. When it's got a 0, it means seconds. When it's a hand, it means minutes. Huh?
Put your headphones on.
Use deductive reasoning skills.
I'm trying! And that's why you watch Facebook Live, so you can see all this crap.
Hey,
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Dr. Jason Beck, radiologist, entrepreneur, vegan, and lifestyle medicine expert. And if you were watching us on Facebook, you had fun.
Lots of yelling.
If you have a question you would like to ask Dr. Beck, you're going to get to. Gray, give them the number.
The number is 501-823-0965.
Okay, one more time.
501-823-0965.
Why is that not an easier number?
That's a great question.
I mean, that's a hard
Because
number.
I can never remember it.
What is it again? Say it again.
501-823-0965.
We need to do something about that number, Zach. They got to have easier numbers out there. Anyway, before the break, we talked about the blue zone and the people that live in the blue zone that was discovered by a National Geographic explorer, journalist. He wrote a book called The Blue Zone. As he traveled around, he noticed that there were 4 communities that had that lived to be 100, and that just had these great healthy lifestyles all the way up. Actually, only 1 in 5,000 people live to be 100, no matter what you do. That's not a whole lot. So you're probably not going to live to be 100. But what you could do is live to be 87 years old and have a really good, productive life all the way up there, instead of living to be 87 and spending the last 5 years in bed or sedentary. And that's really what we're trying to get to, don't you think?
Absolutely. We want to try to live until we die.
Live until we die. I like more years to your life instead of life to your years. Did I say that right? You want to add more? You don't want to add more years to your life. You want to add more life to your years.
Yeah,
There
something
you
like
go.
that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got
Yeah.
that. All right, this guy, David Bootner, that we're talking about, who kind of founded the Blue Zone, this is his quote. "The calculus of aging offers us 2 options. We can live a shorter life with many more years of disability, or we can live the longest possible life with the fewest bad years. As my centenarian friends showed me, the choice is largely up to us." So we're talking today about how to do that. What's vegan versus vegetarian? I always get that confused.
Sure. Vegetarian excludes consumption of animals. So you exclude the meat and fish. Vegan excludes the consumption of animals as well as all animal products. So they exclude eggs and dairy as well.
And you're vegan.
I am, for the most part, yes.
Does it matter? Does it really matter?
The 90% is what matters.
What do you mean?
Well, our bodies tolerate 10% of whatever we put in it pretty well, whether that's whiskey and Big Macs or Oreo cookies or whatever, right? If the other 90% of what we're consuming is coming from very health-promoting foods. And so I think that there's the diet that I follow as closely as I can is a whole food plant-based diet. So it is a diet where most all of my calories every day come from whole plant foods. So plant foods as grown, right? Not processed, not added oils and sugars and salts and chemicals and flavorings and all these things that come in our packaged foods. And so basically everything I eat every day does not have an ingredient list. I look at it and I know what it is. This is a banana. This is a sweet potato. This is a bean, right? I don't need to read the ingredient list to know what I'm putting in my body. And I think that's the key. And I think if people can aim for 100% on that, they'll probably hit the 90% mark, because our food environment in this country is so backwards, right? Where there is unhealthy food on every street corner and every convenience store and occupying most of our supermarkets, right? And the healthy food is hard to come by, right?
Isn't that just weird?
You can't go into a fast food restaurant and get healthy food for the most part, right? You have to really try to pick out, the right kind of salad with the right kind of dressing, or, get it and go to McDonald's and get a salad and an apple. But it's very outside of the norm. And so we live in this food environment where we're bombarded every day with advertising, for all these ultra processed foods and these things that we know do not promote health in our bodies, right? And so it makes it harder for us to eat a truly health promoting diet. And so I think when people can aim to do it nearly completely, they'll probably hit about the 90% mark. And if we can hit the 90% mark, I think most of us will be just fine long term.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people ask me, like, what do you do at Christmas? What do you do at Thanksgiving? I say, I eat whatever I want to eat on Christmas and Thanksgiving, right? It isn't what you do between Christmas and New Year's. It's what you do between New Year's and Christmas, right? And so, it's those choices every day. If you're making great choices 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to do great. And, for people, I think most of them have this fear of not eating, or fear of deficiency, right? This fear of protein deficiency. The supplement companies that didn't exist 70 years ago, right, have now suddenly convinced most Americans they need to take something to be healthy.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's one of the bigger farces propagated on the American public.
So I don't need vitamin D?
Vitamin D is made in your body by the sunshine.
So when someone says you have a vitamin D deficiency, you just go sit in the sun?
You go sit in the sun, yes.
How about B12?
B12.
Those are the two I take.
Yes. In our current environment where everything we buy at special base is triple wash, sanitized, ready to eat, you do need to take a B12. If you were picking vegetables from your garden and brushing them on your leg and eating them, you would not need a B12.
Do you have a big garden?
It's not big. It's probably, 100 feet by 50 feet. But
That's
it's
pretty big.
amazing the amount of food it produces. Unbelievable amount of food.
That is a problem with gardens. It produces so much food
It
sometimes.
does. Yeah, we're fortunate there's a lot of us up there to eat it, but yes.
So I think sometimes people are exactly like you said. They're afraid of not getting enough food, and so they overeat. They eat just anything.
Right.
And sometimes I think it's better to not eat than to eat the wrong things.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm currently at the end of day 4 of a 5-day fast, which I try to do every quarter. And it just to reset my relationship with food, kind of reset my body, boost my immune system. And
Because
so,
you're fasting?
yes, absolutely.
And you eat at night? When do you eat?
What I do is called a fasting mimicking diet, which is basically you consume 300 to 400 calories a day of the macronutrients that your body would get if you were purely fasting on water. And it kind of tricks your body into thinking you're water fasting, and it promotes all the things, the changes in your body that are beneficial when you do fast.
Which are?
Recruitment of stem cells from your bone marrow that help heal your body, elimination of older cells from your body, elimination of a lot of the antibodies from the immune system that cause autoimmune diseases and allergies. There's good science to show that when we, as humans fast, our bodies do all these things to get ready for when we can eat again, right? And so it's almost like a reset.
I saw where we have 35 trillion cells that turn over every 8 years in our body. And when they turn over, they're not as good. Because you get when you turn over every 8 years, they're kind of like recording on an 8-track on a cassette tape. Every time you make another tape off of a cassette tape, it gets a little bit muddier sounding and a little bit muddier sounding, and then so that when your cells turn over every 8 years, you're turning over from a little bit muddier group of cells, and then so the next group is that.
There is some truth to that, but most of that can be abated by lifestyle changes. And I'll give you a great example. A guy named Dean Ornish, who was President Bill Clinton's physician when he was in office, and actually got him transitioned to more of a plant-based diet at the time, did a study where he took men with prostate cancer and looked at the telomeres, which are the caps on the end of our DNA. And when you say they kind of get muddy, it's the telomeres shorten as we age, right? And what he did was looked at people that he put on a lifestyle intervention of a plant-based diet, daily meditation, and looked at the telomere length over time. And they actually are able to lengthen their telomeres to stop that aging process to some degree, right? And
through
so
fasting or through the diet?
Through a whole food plant-based diet combined with meditative practices, combined with good social support, were his 3 keys to his study.
Okay.
Yeah.
The guy that wrote that talked about these blue zones has written a book, and it's called, let me see what the name of his book, I think it's called The Blue Zone Book.
It is. He's got 2 of them, actually. He's got one called The Blue Zones and another one where he looked at happiness, basically did the same study with happiness.
And laughing, I would think, would
And
be a good one.
so he wrote a summary book on that as well, and there's a lot of crossover with the Blue Zones, actually, as far as location and such. And
oh, really?
Lifestyle, yes.
So if you're laughing every day and being happy and eat right, you're going to die in your sleep when you're 100 years old without any health problems. All right, I got it. I'm doing it. I'm going to draw cartoons from now on out. Do you ever eat meat? And is there anything that you're going to miss out if you just completely quit eating meat? I feel like if I never ate meat again, there'd be something I'd be missing, because I don't do anything to extremes. I don't do anything completely extreme.
Right. I think in the last 10 years, I've probably consumed 4 ounces of meat, maybe.
You're pretty extreme.
I'm pretty extreme.
You don't eat turkey on Thanksgiving.
I sometimes will have a nibble if it appeals to me, but most of the time it doesn't appeal to me.
And you're not tired? You don't think there's any... You're a doctor. You're a scientist. You're everything. And so you don't think there's anything that you're missing by not eating meat? I mean, why do I have these 2 fangs right here in the front of my mouth if I'm not supposed to eat meat?
Well, if you'll notice, your fangs look more like a cow's fangs than they do a tiger's fangs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do cows eat meat? No,
They
grass
do not.
only.
Grass only.
They eat a lot of corn.
Yeah. I don't know that it's the fact that if you do eat meat or don't eat meat. I think the biggest problem we have is the quantity, right? If you look back over history, people would take a small serving of meat, use it as a garnish or flavoring for their meal. So they may take a 4-ounce serving of meat and split it among 6 kids as a garnish or flavoring, right? Whereas now we think we need a 4-ounce serving of meat with breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. I mean, even carnivores don't do that, right?
Right.
Carnivores get a piece of meat every couple of days and they're good. And so we're just eating in ways that we've never eaten before.
What about a variety of food? Like, I end up eating the same things over and over and over, and I'm so bored eating them. I mean, so do you have a big variety, and is that important to this
I mean, I
lifestyle?
do think it's important to eat, what I say is eat the rainbow, right?
Okay.
So just, start with your yellows, orange, reds, greens, purples, everything. I think if you eat a variety of all those foods every day or every week, you're fine. But if you look at most of these Blue Zones cultures, like there's one of them where 80% of their calories comes from sweet potatoes. That means most of what they eat every day is sweet potatoes.
How boring is that?
And I think they're one of the healthiest cultures out there. And so I don't think, you have to have some variety to get the nutrients that you need, but most people, I think, actually do better from a long-term weight control standpoint eating a smaller variety of foods.
And it can really just use the 80-20 rule. Just do proportion control to start off with. I mean, I'm going to put all of these 9 things you can do in the Blue Zone. I'm going to put them on flag and banner. You make speeches around town.
I do.
Where would we find out about you're talking about this stuff?
There's a Facebook group called It's a Plant-Based Club. Probably the best place for information dissemination on that. I'll have to get that to you, but you can put it on your show links.
I'll put it on. I'll put it on your share links.
It's called the Plant Strong Club.
Plant Strong Club, and we'll put it on the Up in Your Business Facebook,
Right.
and share it.
Right. And so while we're on the topic of blue zones, I'll mention the founder of the Plant Strong Club, the two co-founders of it, are interested in trying to make Little Rock a blue zone city.
Fun.
So the Blue Zones group has basically allowed cities to implement their ideas, right? And so the city promotes kind of Blue Zones concepts, and there's cities around the country that have done this, and I think there's one down in Texas somewhere, which would be about the last place I would think would be
right. 'Cause
ready to eat a predominantly plant-based diet,
that's
right?
beef country.
And so, it takes kind of a movement to get that done. So I would welcome the listeners to educate yourself about the Blue Zones concepts and begin to think about, how to implement some of those things into their own life.
Arkansas needs it so much. We have obesity problems here, and we have childhood obesity is really bad, and I feel like that's really unfair to the children of Arkansas.
Absolutely. It just breaks my heart when I see these moms checking out in the grocery store and they've got a cart full of hyper-processed food, and their kids are overweight and they've got childhood onset diabetes. And I mean, I grew up a chunky kid. It's miserable. It's absolutely miserable. People make fun of you. You can't go play sports like your friends. It just, I would love to see that change more than anything.
Well, if we all rally behind this Blue Zone, start educating people, a lot of it's educating people. A lot of it's knowing how to order when you got to eat. When you got to eat these days, there's a lot of more options. If we become a Blue Zone state, I would imagine that's gonna change and make more
and
options
there's
for
been
people
a
eating it.
huge pendulum swing as well. I mean, you've got Tyson just announced their plant-based line of foods called Raised and Rooted. Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger are within the next 2 years will be in like 7,000 Burger King locations around the country. Subway's offering a plant-based meatball sub.
But I don't want to eat those processed.
No, they are not health promoting foods necessarily, but I think that they are a good transition food to get people over the hurdle of, I don't have to eat meat every day to live, right? And so I think if you can say, you know what, I'm going to take the next week, and when I go out to my fast food meal, I'm going to try these plant-based options, and they realize at the end of the week, they didn't actually die.
So many, that you can eat good and it's still tasty.
Exactly, yes.
But there are a lot of vegan options out there for hamburger patties and stuff that I just don't think are any much better for you than meat. They've got way too many preservatives and artificial flavorings.
Right. The thing is they're in order to sell them to the American public, they have to make them taste and feel as close to me as they can. So the composition of them is very close to meat from a health standpoint. And so I do think they're a better alternative because they don't have the cholesterol and fat that the meats have in them. But
Dr. Beck, we're down to the wire. I could talk to you all day. This is for you. It came from Arkansas Flag and Banner. It's to Dr. Jason Beck. It's a nurse, and here she sings. I'll be there. Stop. I'll be there. That's what a Dr. Beck's going to be for all of his
Thank you very
patients.
much.
We told her not to play it on the radio.
I couldn't help it. It's good. Thanks again for coming. I want to say to our listeners, thanks for joining us today. If you have a great entrepreneurial story you'd like to share, send a brief bio or your contact info to Kerry at flagandbanner.com. Thank you all for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. For links to resources you heard discussed on today's show, go to flagandbanner.com, select Radio Show, and choose today's guest. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week. Subscribe to podcasts wherever you like to listen. Kerry's goal is simple: to help you live the American dream.